Well, that was the view of delegates attending a resource sustainability summit at the Gibbs School of Business Sciences today. But speakers also argue that policy in its current is keeping mining firms from extending their social responsibility efforts. Business anchor Devin Murrigan spoke to water resource expert Dr. Anthony Turton and John Waits from mining tailings firm Fraser Alexandra about the effects of mining operations on mining communities. He started by asking them why mining firms have had such a hard time gaining the trust of communities. This is how he answered.
We're looking at skill shortages, and there are a number of skill shortages. One of them is we don't have town planners or architects that actually understand post-closure. So we're working with Wits University at the moment, the School of Architecture, who in turn are collaborating with University of Leuven in Belgium. And they are now fielding the first postgraduate training program in South Africa that looks at post-closure landscapes. Now, if you look at mining from an abstract point of view, what mining is about changing the shape of the landscape. So now, while you've got yellow machines moving around and doing all sorts of things, why can't you change that landscape into something positive in the future? So we're now seeing the first skills development in the sector, if you like, coming out. There are two master's theses that now deal specifically with the Western Basin, where I'm operating at the moment. And for the first time, we're starting to get a sense of what it might look like. We hope to ramp that up to 20-odd postgrad students by the end of this year. And ultimately, these ideas, they're nothing more than ideas at this stage. We need to put those into a forum. That forum needs to start really getting consensus around it. You'll never get 100% agreement from all the people, at least 80% consensus around this. And then coming out of that, you get hope. Once you get hope, once you've got institutions that buy into these concepts, you then start dropping out of this bankable projects. And once you've got bankable projects, that's when the social license to mine really kicks in. Because now at the moment, the current discourse about certainly these marginal mines, mines in the late phase of their development, the natural pattern, if you apply the legislation right now, or the natural driver is for the investors to run for the hills. So we're incentivizing bad behavior. We've got to have a different discussion now about offset benefits, quantifying those benefits, and actually getting multipliers coming out of those benefits. And that is a fundamental component of the social license to mine.
I want to stick with you before I go to John. I mean, let's just talk about that. You'd get opponents to your argument say that, well, we haven't seen any evidence of that as yet.
Yes.
We might be facing some mine closures now. Those communities are not prepared to be independently sustained.
Yeah.
Why did it take this long?
Well, we must remember that for the last 120 years, mining has been allowed to do what it's done. So in other words, we've incentivized the current behavior that we have. We've got to re-incentivize it. We've maximized profits by taking liabilities off the balance sheet. That's what we've done. Now, those liabilities are now constraints to the future. This is the real fundamental question. How do we create jobs in a country, in an economy that is mining-based, where historic liabilities or externalities are now fundamental constraints for the future? How do we retain social cohesion in that phase? Now, I think what's coming out of that is a common language. We all have a similar understanding that the social cohesion issue is in nobody's interest to allow to deteriorate. So this is where we're starting to focus now. Now, the chickens are coming home to roost.
And to get there, John, I mean, we need to get out of this awkwardness when it comes to the legal reform, the policy reform. And the point of the matter is, a lot of people are still unhappy with that.
Yes, I think the legal reform has a way to go. And in that regard, I would mention one of the issues that I see as being very important is that we need to move towards a legal framework in which a collective decision around a vision can be captured within the legal framework within which a mining company operates. Because at the moment, the legal system seems to drive the silo behavior which you were referring to earlier. It needs to become all-encompassing so that these individual mines that make up a collective community can all operate in concert.
I probably feel this question to anyone who wants to answer this. What makes the RB Platinum scenario a successful one? Go for it.
That's the question again.
The RB Platinum situation, I mean, there seems to be a success story there in terms of communities and the miner. What made that successful?
I think where in localized conditions or localized circumstances, there is the possibility of making a successful outcome. And I think it comes down to the fact that executives within those entities have realized that the cost of ignoring the social license to mine translates into massive risk for the company, and therefore it's actually, once again, it's driven, if you like, by their own visions of sustainability. It is simply easier to de-risk the whole process by engaging in the social license to mine. And once we start getting that discourse happening, we need to capture the success stories, and we need to start cascading those success stories across, because right now they're few and far between, and right now many people have got the impression that they're swimming against very, very strong currents in a very turbulent sea.
How is our environmental policy when it comes to mines at the moment? I mean, I think it was you, Anthony, but let me put this to you. Speak about some flawed assumptions. Is it really the case?
No, I think we have a very powerful environmental policy. I think that the translation of that policy into practices and regulation have some way to go, but the framework within which we operate in South Africa, I believe, is world class.
Is it stifling, though, Anthony?
Well, it is, because a lot of the assumptions in our current environmental policy are based on greenfields thinking, and where in reality most of our mines are brownfields. Yeah. So if you, for example, take the polluter pay principle, it's fine to apply the polluter pay over the life of the mine. Yeah. But if you only come in when 80% of the resource has been mined out, and you now only have 20% of the resource left, which is very difficult to get out, your cost of getting it out is extremely high. And I expect that 20% to fund the entire historic legacy. I'm afraid we simply are driving the wrong behavior. We're simply driving disinvestment. So I think an important thing is we need to have an honest discussion now about brownfields versus greenfields operations, and we need to separate them completely. Okay? The greenfields operations, the current legislation, I think is absolutely rock solid. The brownfields operations, what's missing there is the discussion about offset benefits to basically make it investable, rather than having to put 100 million rand on the table to pay as a deposit, if you like. Just that 100 million rand simply kills the investment case. Yeah. So it's the whole issue of offset benefits. It's not about avoiding liability. Yeah. It's not about running away from responsibilities. Make those offset benefits measurable. Tie them into a contract. Do whatever you want to in terms of oversight and King 3 type of stuff. But ultimately, it's a discussion about offset benefits.
John, I want to end with you. I mean, what Anthony's basically telling us is that argument you put forward fits into this whole scenario of extraction versus redistribution. Are we far from getting an ideal scenario where that works?
No, I believe it can work in the future, and I think that there's a lot of respect and understanding for the enormous economic benefit and social benefit that can be derived from mining. I just believe that we should be careful about tarring the current mining industry and its behavior with the legacies. As Anthony's saying, brownfields versus greenfields. I think we need to clean up the legacies and then work with the future to create a sustainable mining outcome in the long run for South Africa.
No, fantastic. Many thanks. John Waits from Fraser Alexander and Dr. Anthony Turton, water resource specialist at the University of Free State. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for chatting to me.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.